actually made a massive mistake that I want to be totally upfront about. My husband and I, we booked our tickets cash because we both have Delta status. So we booked Air France tickets through Delta. We just paid cash for those. Those were about $1,000 each. We booked them far out, so we got a good deal. We used the Google price trackers and everything, and we knew that we would be automatically upgraded. Well, after we had flown to Europe with my toddler, we got him his own seat part of the way, and then on the way home, we didn't get him his own seat. We were like, we're never doing this again, an infant in arms in a long haul international transatlantic flight. So we decided that we were going to book his on miles, and we got a screaming deal from Salt Lake City to Cairo for only 70,000 points round trip on Air France. So what I did is I booked his ticket through Air France on points, but for the same flight that we were on. And then I called Delta and we linked all of our flights. But it was fine through Delta, but by the time that we got to Paris, we had a layover in Paris, it wasn't fine in Air France's system. It was an absolute disaster. And they told me that my son couldn't get on the flight and all of these things. I was crying at the check-in counter, all of the things. So lesson learned there. If you are booking your infant on points or your child on points with some of the major European carriers, you need to have it booked with the adults. Otherwise, it can cause massive problems at check-in.
Hey there, points people. You just heard a clip from Kamree Price from Our Family Passport. Kamree is an art history professor, academic researcher, and mom to a blended family of 6 by day. She's also a self-described family travel crazy by night. She believes that you don't have to be rich or sell it all to have luxury and epic experiences all over the world with your crew. In this episode, we discuss Kamree's fantastic trip to Egypt using points and miles, and also some tips for long-haul international trips with toddlers and children. One of the hotels we cover in this episode is the St. Regis Cairo, which is a Marriott hotel. If you'd like a free night at a Marriott hotel each year, check out the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless card, which comes with a complimentary $35K free night certificate each card anniversary year. Remember, if you decide to apply for the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless or any other card, never apply directly through Google. Always use a friend or creator's referral link. If you're interested in supporting this show when you apply for your next card, check out geobreezetravel.com/cards. And if you're not sure what card is right for you, I do offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. And we have links to the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless and the free consultation form for you in the show notes as well. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast, a show for anyone wanting to level up their travel hacking lifestyle. I'm your host, Julia Menez. I'm a travel hacker, coach, speaker, Filipino-American ENTJ who loves solid travel gear and using shortcuts on spreadsheets. On this show, I'm on a mission to bring you travel hackers from all walks of life to help you level up your travel hacking game. We dive into credit cards, miles, points, strategy, mindset, and the secrets behind how to travel the world for next to no cost. So, let's get hacking. Resorts like the Alila Ventana Big Sur, Grand Canavesuilla Suites, and Park Hyatt Kyoto can go for thousands of dollars per night, making them some of the most sought-after hotel redemptions in the points world. But since these hotels only have a few rooms on property, it can be notoriously difficult to find award availability. Lucky for you, Aways makes finding award space at these resorts super easy with their Platinum membership. You'll be able to view award availability on a 30-day calendar basis. So check out Aways and get a free 5-day trial at geobreezetravel.com/Aways before all of the award space gets scooped up by everybody who already has an Aways account. Thank you to Aways for partnering with this episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. Hey Kamree, welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Julia. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. We are going to talk about your amazing Egypt trip that you just took. I don't think we've had an episode on Egypt yet, and it's a really, really fun destination. And we will talk all about how to fly there on points, where you can stay on points. And I think you said you saved something like $20,000 on this trip.
Yeah, it was insane. And it was so awesome. We loved it so much.
Awesome. Well, before we jump into all of that, tell us a little bit about yourself first, your background, and how did you get into the game of points and miles?
Okay, so my background is a little bit different. So I actually grew up with all sorts of opportunities to travel. My parents own several small businesses, and so they use points and miles all of the time. But I went the education route. So I am actually an art history professor. But before I even finished my grad program and everything, I taught junior high and high school. So I was not making tons of money or anything like that. And I kind of thought that reward travel and points and miles were only available to people who had huge amounts of spend and had businesses. Anyway, I ended up getting divorced. I was a single mom for a little bit, and my budget shifted. I didn't have my husband's income anymore. I was a teacher, and teachers don't make tons of money. And so I kind of started digging into points and miles, and I realized, oh my gosh, I can do this on my regular budget and I can make this work for me. So I will never earn as many points and miles as my parents earn, just because my spending is different, but we have totally made it work for our family. And then I got remarried, and we now have 4 children. We're a blended family. My husband has 2, I brought 1, and then we had 1 together. And so we are a family of 6, and we love traveling on points and miles. It makes all the difference. And I still work part-time as a professor at a local university because I love that. But points and miles and traveling with my family is where it all is for me, because it's so awesome. And I really do believe that education is so important, but I really do believe my kids learn so much just experiencing the world, that's such an important part of global citizenship and everything. So I love that we have the opportunity through Reward Travel to take them places and do things together.
When you and your now husband first started dating, you were already into points, right? Was that
Yes.
difficult to get him into the game?
No. And that's why my story is a little bit different, because I didn't have the hesitation of points and miles. I saw my parents doing it. And then when we met, we actually met on an airplane of all places, flying to Amsterdam. And he did tons of business travel. He works, not now, but he works in Ukraine a lot. And so he was earning points and miles and had Delta Diamond status and all of the things. And so it was not hard at all. We just jumped in together after that, and it was so easy.
That's the way to do it for people who are like, where do I find a player two on a plane?
On an airplane. Yep. Yep.
So how are you guys earning enough points and also finding redemptions for a family of 6? Because I assume the latter one is actually the harder part, is finding the award availability for all 6 of you to travel on an airplane at one time.
Yeah, it is really tricky. So because we're blended, we don't always all travel as a family of 6. However, and I will be upfront, I don't love Southwest Airlines. I much prefer to fly Delta or something like that, especially since we're located in Utah and Delta is a hub here. However, we have realized that in order to travel, all 6 of us, we really do need those Southwest Companion Passes. That has really, really, really helped. So we have jumped on that bandwagon. And then something else that we do to make sure that we are able to travel and have enough points, we book really far in advance. That is probably my biggest piece of advice for families that are wanting to travel, larger families that are wanting to travel, is last minute redemptions really aren't a thing for our family of 6. They get more expensive and they're harder to find. And then as far as earning points, we've gotten really, really good at the player 2 strategy, and then maximizing business credit cards.
What is your player 2 strategy? Do you guys normally get the same card and just refer each other, or how are you utilizing the fact that you guys have 2 players?
Okay, so how we do it, I like to plan in advance where I want to go. So I know that some people are like, well, be open to destinations and be open to dates. And I think that's great. But for us, we have to be really strategic. And so when I knew I wanted to go to Egypt, I knew that I needed a lot of Marriott points. And so 2 years in advance, I had kind of decided, all right, I'm going to apply for this Marriott card. I'm going to refer you at this point for this Marriott card, and then you're going to get this Marriott card. And so we kind of plan in advance. Usually we won't get the same card at one time. We have more of a rolling strategy. So I'll get one, and then I have a strategy, and then his is concurrent to mine, and then we work together on it.
That makes sense, because how many points would you say you have to earn in a year? Do you know? Do you have a budget?
We are consistently earning anywhere between the 2 of us. We're consistently earning anywhere between 700,000 points to about 1.5 million in any given year. And sometimes it's more. This last year, we actually earned 1 million points just in Amex points. So that kind of ebbs and flows depending on our current strategy. But for a family of 6, for us to travel as much as we do on points and miles, it's a pretty serious game. It's like, I'm like the crazy credit card person, and you see the coupon people at the store, and they get their entire they get all their groceries for free. That's kind of where I'm at. We have a rolling strategy, and we are really, really into it. And every dollar that we spend goes on a credit card, and we really maximize our category multipliers. So even if it's only 4 times the points on $12 of groceries, I'm making sure that I'm maximizing.
Is it largely just from the sign-up bonus and category multipliers then, or is it also a lot from your husband's business expenses or anything like that?
So we both have business expenses, which is really helpful. That is really great. Something else that we've really done this last year is we've taken advantage of shopping portals, and that has helped out a lot. As a family of 6, we spend all sorts of things on all of our kids, and so that has helped. Usually we are making the most of those welcome bonuses. I don't love applying for 1,000 cards just in 1 year. I think that's overwhelming. And so we really try to look at those category multipliers and stacking. So I love stacking the offers in my Chase portal or in American Express, and then adding Rakuten on top of that, and then spending. So that's kind of how we've gone about it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. A lot of people will look at Instagram and be like, so I got to open like 20 cards. No, it
No,
can't be done.
no, you really don't. And something else, we pay a lot in annual fees. We for sure pay a lot in annual fees, and I'm totally okay with that because our return is tenfold and then some. You can do it however works for you, right? If a family of 6 just wants to take one really awesome vacation for free a year, you can absolutely do that. I want to take 10. So then, I increase what I do.
If you're taking 10 vacations, how do you have the time?
Well, so that has actually been a little bit of an argument between my husband and I because I just love booking trips all the time. So I work remote. I don't work after COVID, all my university classes got put online, and it was the best thing ever for me because I'm at home with my kids and then I can work remote. I can be on a safari and then grading my papers, which is fantastic. My husband works partially remote. That works. And when we were in Egypt, our first week that we were there, we had to be back in the hotel around 4 or 5 every night so that he could do his work calls and work. And that's kind of how we do it. And sometimes I go places without him. He doesn't always come. And I'm totally good with that too.
How does it work with the kids' school schedules?
So that's a little tricky as a blended family. My ex-husband and I are really good friends, and we both agree that traveling is a form of education. And so we take my cute little almost 10-year-old on his 10th birthday. He's going to be doing an African safari with his grandma, but he's been to over 23 countries. So he's gone all over, and that's been really wonderful. With our stepchildren, it's a little bit harder. And so we have to be really, really good at maximizing school vacations and summers. That's harder to get good redemptions during those times because they're more expensive, but we've made it work. And I love going as a whole family of 6. We're getting ready to go just in a few days to Disneyland. We're taking all of them to Disneyland. So I can't wait.
Is it made any easier by the fact that you know well ahead of time when their vacations are, so you can just plan ahead of time?
Yes. So I have a printed schedule, and our 3 older kids go to 3 different schools. So I have I know it's intense. I have a printed schedule of their calendars all the way out to 2025. And so I know, and I know exactly where, and I'm not going to say it because it's a surprise for our kids and everything, but I know where we're going for spring break 2024. And I already have like the idea of the points that I need and when I'm going to start booking and all of those things. So planning ahead is by far my biggest piece of advice for anyone that's wanting to travel with a larger family. You kind of just have to make that happen.
Are you able to make business class happen for a family? Because I know that's something that a lot of people on the internet kind of criticize about points and miles as well, is the vast majority of us, me included, who are doing this, do not have dependents to worry about. So it's a lot of solo travelers, a lot of couples who are flying in these business class things, not only because that's expensive if you're doing that for 6 people, but also just the award availability. So are you able to do that?
So this is my honest opinion on business class. I love flying business class with me and my husband. It's absolutely not worth it for us to do a family of 6. It's just impossible. In fact, when we just got home from Egypt, we flew business class part of the way, and then we flew Comfort Plus on Delta on the way home, and we had a bulkhead row with our toddler. He's 18 months. And honestly, I preferred the bulkhead. It's less stress. It was cheaper. I could put down a blanket and he could play. I wasn't worried about upsetting other business class flyers. And for me, because we have a family of 6, I almost never, ever, ever use my points and miles to fly business. I'll use cash if we have it available. When my husband was Delta Diamond, we would use our first class upgrades a lot. And we get upgraded to first class and business class sometimes. But for me, spending an additional, sometimes 100,000 points on a business class flight is just not worth it for me. That I can get my family somewhere really awesome for that sometimes.
And kids are small. So
yeah, kids are small. And I mean, everyone hates main cabin. You're scrunched in there and it's miserable and whatever. But for me, it's like I'm miserable for 15 hours if we're going somewhere really far like Egypt. And then I'm in Egypt and then I use those points to stay really awesome places and have awesome experiences.
I think that's a good way to look at it too, because as we all look through Instagram, there's just the FOMO all the time. A lot of the viral reels that I see from a lot of pages are ones where it's just a trending audio and somebody walking through their first class cabin. That's really it, which if that goes viral, that means that everybody is seeing, oh, this is how we're supposed to travel. And I'm a loser ball if I'm not getting it right. But that's not it. Like, make travel the way you want it to be. And I appreciate that you're saying it's much, much harder to do. It can be done, but it's much, much harder to do if you are booking for 6 people on a long international flight.
Yeah, for me, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the time. And it's not worth the stress when I'm in business class with my 4 children. Like, that overwhelms me. We have done business class on points and miles. Like, we've gone to Thailand and my little son, my biological little, we flew first class, and that's great. But the budget and the area and the financial situation that we're in now, it just doesn't make sense. And you're right. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. And I actually would venture to guess that any larger family that's trying to fly on points and miles, they're not doing business class.
Or if they are, it's just the parents doing it. Or there are 10 million reasons that why what people see on Instagram is fantasy land.
Yes.
I will keep repeating that until the end of time, because some people just have a lot of money. Like, even before we got into points and miles, my husband and I were already pretty financially independent. Some people have large business expenses that they can use to earn all of these points and miles. Some people might be like, oh, I have 4 kids and look, I'm in business class all the time, but your 4 kids aren't with you all the time. So there's just always something. And I don't want to make this like a be skeptical of every person you ever see on the internet, but it's fantasy land. It's like when you look at celebrities and then you just know that their faces don't look like that naturally. Their waistlines don't look like that naturally. Everything is the same kind of thing on Instagram.
When I was growing up, my parents always told us, because we had lots of opportunities, my parents always told us there will always be someone that has more and there will always be someone that has less. And the trick is being happy with what you have and being secure in what you have, not judging someone that has less, not judging someone that has more. And I actually have found that that is really true of points and miles. Sometimes I think, especially when I got started, like you said, with Instagram, I'm looking and I'm like, oh, they just went to Bora Bora and they flew first class and blah, 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 blah. And that seemed like impossible for me at the time. And it actually was, with where I was at as a single mom and teaching 2 teaching jobs and stuff. And that's okay. You do what works for you. And like you said, you don't want to be skeptical of everyone, but there's really, I don't know if there's a wrong way of doing it. If it's working for you and your family and your situation, then go for it.
Don't redeem your points for magazines or a Roomba. That's the wrong way to do it.
Yes, you're right. Yes, yes. Yes, don't do that. But yes, if you're flying for main cabin instead of business, you're good. That's okay.
Absolutely. So let's dive into this Egypt trip a little bit. What did you fly? How many points did it cost? Where did you stay? Break down all the details for us.
Okay, so I actually made a massive mistake that I want to be totally upfront about. My husband and I, we booked our tickets cash because we both have Delta status. So we booked Air France tickets through Delta. We just paid cash for those. Those were about $1,000 each. We booked them far out, so we got a good deal. We used the Google price trackers and everything. And we knew that we would be automatically upgraded. Well, after we had flown to Europe with my toddler, we got him his own seat part of the way. And then on the way home, we didn't get him his own seat. We were like, we're never doing this again, an infant in arms in a long haul international transatlantic flight. So we decided that we were going to book his on miles, and we got a screaming deal from Salt Lake City to Cairo for only 70,000 points round trip on Air France. So what I did is I booked his ticket through Air France on points, but for the same flight that we were on. And then I called Delta and we linked all of our flights. But it was fine through Delta. But by the time that we got to Paris, we had a layover in Paris. It wasn't fine in Air France's system. It was an absolute disaster. And they told me that my son couldn't get on the flight and all of these things. I was crying at the check-in counter, all of the things. So lesson learned there. If you are booking your infant on points or your child on points with some of the major European carriers, you need to have it booked with the adults. Otherwise, it can cause massive problems at check-in. So his was booked on points. Ours wasn't. It was fine on the way home. Getting there was a little tricky. I won't ever do that again. So if I could do it again, I would have paid cash for my husband's, and then I would have done points for mine and my son's. So that's how we got there. And then we wanted to stay really nice places in Egypt, but I also wanted to have the money for a private guide, especially when I'm traveling with my little ones. I don't like doing big tours. And we have gone all over the world, and there's only a few places that I feel the need to have a guide with you all of the time. And Egypt is actually one of those. I loved it. It was amazing. The cultural and language barrier is really strong. And so I knew that I wanted to have some cash set aside to have a private driver and a private guide with us the whole time. So we did all of our stays totally on points. We stayed for 5 nights at the St. Regis in Cairo, and it was beautiful. It was about a $1,200 a night hotel. We got our entire 5-night stay for 168,000 Marriott points. We made use of the 5th night free. And then we did the 4 Seasons in Alexandria for free for a few nights. We used our Amex Fine Hotel and Resorts program through the American Express Platinum. And then we did Hilton while we were in Luxor, and we stayed there for 4 days, and that was all on points too. So we redeemed a nice chunk of points, but we had, seriously, it almost ended up rounding out to be about $18,000 in hotel stays that we had totally for free. We were there for almost 2 weeks.
Those are some nice hotels. And Egypt is one of those places where it is great to use your Fine Hotels and Resorts credit. Anywhere like Egypt, Morocco, a lot of Southeast Asia, just places where you can get a lot of luxury for not a lot of money. Those are great places to use your $200 Fine Hotels and Resorts credit.
So actually, Julia, I didn't use my credit. I had used my credit before, but I booked just through my American Express Platinum. I didn't even have to use that credit. If you book through your, and I'm sure you know this, if you book through your American Express Platinum through the American Express portal, even if you do only points, you still get all of those benefits. So we got like the 4 p.m. late checkout, the free breakfast. I had a spa treatment that was totally covered. And I just booked through the American Express travel portal with my Platinum, and I got all of those things. I had actually used my credit before we had done a trip earlier, but yes. And something that I loved about Egypt is that my points went really far. If I were to try to stay at the Marriott Champs-Élysées, that's about $1,200 a night as well, the point redemption for that is like 112,000 points a night. Whereas Egypt is a little bit more off the normal travel radar. Our points went really, really far there.
Yeah, for anybody who's on Team Hyatt, there is one hotel that I saw on the site. It's the Hyatt Regency Cairo West. It's only 6,500 points per night, which is amazing. And if you're like, well, is that still like a good sense for point redemption? It's $200 a night. So I would definitely do points on that. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I really like staying at the really, really luxury hotels in Egypt because you have private security. They have their own filtered water system for each of those hotels. So you know that the food that you're eating is great. It was wonderful. We loved it so much. My little toddler, though, got a little pampered and a little spoiled and had a little nice rude awakening when he got home, and he wasn't. People in Egypt loved him. He's little blondie, and so he just had all of the attention everywhere. And then when he got home, he was like, wait, why am I not the center of everybody's world? But it was awesome. We loved it so much. And then because we used points, and because we used points on his ticket, because by the time that we went to book his ticket, the flight was almost $2,000. We were able to use that money and have some really, really amazing experiences while we were in Egypt.
Did all 6 of you go on this trip?
No. So we did it over Christmas because we're a blended family. Our older 3 were with their other parents. And because Christmas is hard for my husband and I when we don't have our other children, we have created a tradition where we go somewhere. And so it was just the 3 of us. It was me, my husband, and then my infant. And then actually last minute, my mom and my brother tagged along, and they also used points for the whole thing. She used points to get there. Same thing, Delta miles. She flew business in first class the whole way. My brother did the premium select on points, and then they stayed at all the same places on points as well. Their redemptions were more expensive because she booked more last minute.
For anybody who's like, okay, so this is how you do it on Delta, SkyTeam, I'm not there, what do I do? So Egypt Air is actually really cheap to do in business class. I hear it's not the most fantastic business class, but if you're tall and you're like, I just need a lie flat seat,
Yes.
you can get that one for pretty cheap on united.com. If you look for Saver Space, it's probably going to be on Egypt Air Metal anyway, or you can do this through Air Canada. You can find it there as well and save some points. ANA, I found Egypt Air a lot, so you'll probably route through Istanbul. You can do Turkish Airlines if you wanted to do that. If you mostly have American airline miles, I think it's just like 70,000 one way in business class. If you wanted to do that, you'll probably fly Royal Jordanian, which I hear is pretty good. So those are a couple other flight options depending on your alliance of choice.
There are all sorts of options. I know that there's quite a few that go through Qatar and things like that. For us, there's a direct flight from Salt Lake to Charles de Gaulle and then a direct flight from Charles de Gaulle to Cairo. And so that worked out best for us.
Being an art professor, how much did you nerd out at everything?
Oh my gosh, it was like I loved it so much. Yeah, for teaching art history, it was like the best thing. And I love ruins and all of the things, but Egypt is otherworldly. You can't even believe that you're standing in a tomb that's 4,000 years old and it's perfectly preserved and they have their mummy and all the things. It's just the coolest thing. And honestly, my son loved it. There's dirt and rocks and sticks everywhere, and he just was living his best life. We had the best time. It was so awesome. However, Egypt is not somewhere that I would recommend someone going for their very first big international trip. I think starting out a little bit smaller, the cultural differences are a little bit less is probably a better option. I think Paris is good, or Rome or Amsterdam or something like that is a good starting place.
For sure. What were some of the different excursions that you got to do?
Oh, we did so many fun things. We did a hot air balloon ride. We had a private tour through some of these awesome tombs. We went to a cooking class out into a village. I loved this part. It was so cool. An American company actually came in because Egypt is, what's so interesting about Egypt is the poverty and the wage gap. They have really wealthy and then really impoverished. And so sometimes that can be hard, and that's a little, there's a weird dichotomy there. So we went out to a village that there is a company that came that taught all of these women how to teach cooking classes. And so we went out into this village and we took a cooking class, and it's run by these women. They're the ones that run it. They get all the money. They do all of the things. And that was a really great experience to do that. And then honestly, I think pyramids, all of the things, I don't even know how you can even describe it. It was really great. And we didn't use points and miles for any of our tours. We paid cash for that. And I don't regret that at all.
Did you go through a portal or anything where you were able to earn extra points for them?
I didn't. Nope. It was a company that I had found by referral, and they were in Egypt. I wanted to work with an Egypt-based company, and so I'd like to keep that money local. And so we just paid them. They actually just wanted American dollars upon arrival. So that's what we did. And I'm so good with that. I'm happy to try to keep money that the locals there, and it's going towards the locals and to people that live in Egypt and businesses that are local based.
That's a good thing to mention as well. I know a lot of times when we are so focused on optimizing one thing, we can lose sight of the bigger picture. And I know we all love our Amazon deals. We all love doing all of these different Uber stacks to get 6 different types of cash back every time we order from a local restaurant. But sometimes if you're just like, I'm willing to give some of that up because I just want my local restaurant to not go out of business, totally cool too.
And like you said, it's important. I love maximizing my points. I think it's also important if I'm traveling to a country and I'm spending time there, I want some of my money to stay in that country and to support tourism. I mean, Egypt has had such a hard time with the Arab Spring, and then they got hit so hard with COVID, and they were telling us that we loved our guides. They were so awesome, but they were telling us that tourism is about like 15% what it used to be. And it is the third highest GDP in Egypt. And so they're struggling. And something else that was really helpful was we were told ahead of time, just expect to tip everyone for everything, and just know that that is something to be aware of. And so I went to the bank before I went, and I got 200 US $1 bills. And I asked my bank teller, can I have $200, like 200 US dollars in $1 bills? And he looked at me like, you don't look like someone that frequents strip clubs. But I said, and then I could tell that he was confused. And so then I said to him, well, I'm going to Egypt. And he looked even more confused. But we knew to expect to tip people for everything. Someone hands you some toilet paper as you're walking into the bathroom. But honestly, that is their economy. And so I was so down, and I was so good with that. And I didn't get points and miles back on those things either. And that's okay.
That's absolutely okay. And I think that we can all look at it as we saved $18,000 on luxury hotels and flights. And I mean, we could invest all of that, put it into savings, put it into investments, but also, depending on what your priorities are, you could use that to stimulate the local economy of wherever it is that you're traveling to. And I love the perspective that you're giving on that.
Yeah, it was really great. And so anyway, and we try to do that. When I book tours, most places I do try to book like local tours and stuff like that. Occasionally I'll use a Vired or Stack or something like that. But most of the time I try to book local and have that go to local people. But I do love my luxury hotels for nothing. You know, waking up at the St. Regis at a $1,200 a night hotel for $0. I was like, this is good. I can get used to this.
Tell us about the food in Egypt. What did you eat? What did you love? What would you say to not eat, if anything?
Okay. So that's a little tricky. I have celiac disease, and my mom has celiac disease. So when we go anywhere that we know is going to be tricky, I actually pack an entire suitcase worth of food. I brought my Premier proteins and all the things all over. It got flagged every time at the airport. They had to pull the protein shakes out and make sure they weren't bombs or whatever. But food in Egypt is a little tricky, especially with a little one, because they have lots of foodborne illnesses if you're not used to the food. But we ate some really yummy food. They have something called fowl. And it is like it's like refried beans, but not. They're these special beans that they put cumin and all these yummy things and spices and stuff. And that was so delicious. We tried to eat one meal out and about at a local restaurant or whatever. That was tricky with the celiac disease, because Egypt is like the birthplace of wheat and bread. And so that was tricky, but we did our best. And then we always had free breakfast, and we maximized that in the hotel. They did a really, really good job making sure everything was gluten-free at those really nice hotels. And then our other meal we ate usually in the hotels too. We tried to do that, especially with the baby. Falafels and stuff like that really don't go super far with him. So we tried to eat one meal out, and we like local places that our guides recommended. We had a one farm to table place that was so good. That was so awesome. Tangine, we had a lot. Anyway, it was really great and a really great experience.
I'm surprised your kid didn't like falafel. It's crunchy on the outside and mushy on the inside.
You would think. I know. He was not a fan. He wanted to stick to his plain bowl of steamed rice, but that is what it is. That's toddler life, you know? You think they're going to like one thing, and they definitely don't. So
that is toddler life. Any other tips for traveling to somewhere like Egypt with a toddler to make it easier for any other families who want to do a similar trip?
So I think traveling anywhere with a toddler, or kids, just kids in general, my biggest piece of advice, even if it's Disney or Hawaii or whatever, you need to have a level of patience and have realistic expectations. And I have always said, because people will always ask me like, well, what if they're throwing a fit, or what if they do this on the airplane or whatever? And my opinion is, yeah, but if they're going to do that at home, you might as well be somewhere cool doing it. So I think just lower your expectations on what that's going to be. I think downtime and playtime is really important. You know, we were standing outside the pyramids, and he wanted to play with a stick and a rock for like 15 minutes, and just doing that, like, that's okay. And then I really like to let my kids, obviously a toddler he can't get involved, but when we all go somewhere, I like to have my kids help plan. So I ask them what they want to do, and they get in on it, and it's really, really great. And we give our kids a budget. I hate going places and having my kids beg and beg for souvenirs everywhere we go. So we give our kids a budget, and then we use our nice 5 times stack to go to Office Depot or Office Max, and we go and get them a little gift card that they can use. And that's the money that they have to spend wherever we go. And when it's gone, and they don't beg mom and dad for anything else. That eliminates some of the, well, I want this and I want that. And something else, without fail, every time I get on an airplane with my children, I at least get one dirty look. Like, what are you doing? The kids are out of school. They'll look at me like, why are your kids out of school or whatever? And at first that used to really stress me out. And this was, decades ago. But now I just am like, haters are going to hate. We smile and wave. It's like Madagascar, smile and wave, boys, smile and wave. And then, you know what? Kids might kick someone's seat. You try to teach them not to do that. You try to teach them not to throw fits and things like that. But I think it's as important for kids to explore and see the world and to open up their mind and their mindset as it is for adults. So those are kind of my big pieces of advice about with traveling with children. And always allow yourself extra time, especially in the airport.
In case they tell your kid that they can't get on the plane.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, great advice. And speaking of great advice, can you give shout out to somebody else on the internet who other people should go check out for awesome points and miles tips?
Yes. So I love Let's Travel Hack. Her strategy is a little different than mine. She doesn't love, she does, but she works more in like budget areas, how to stay in budget hotels and stretch your points even further. She's not as worried about like the bougie thing. And so I really like her perspective, and she has 3 kids. And so for families, she's a really great person to follow and to look at.
Awesome. And where can we find you on the internet?
So I'm at Our Family Passport. I'm on Instagram, and then my website is www.ourfamilypassport.com. And then we also have a course that we do to teach families how they can travel on points and miles. And it's called Travel Reward University. So you can find that too at travelrewarduniversity.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Kamree, for coming onto the show, talking about Egypt. This was absolutely fascinating, and so many great tips for families as well who might want to do this kind of trip but are thinking, oh, I don't know if we can make it work. Like, we have a small kid, or we have a lot of kids, or Egypt's just really far or expensive to get there. So you provided so many wonderful tips today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I have loved your podcast. This was so fun to be on and to finally get to talk to you face to face.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. If any of the cards mentioned in today's episode piqued your interest, please check out the links in the show notes for more information on any of the cards. Also, if you apply for a card using the links on that page, I may receive a commission too, so please and thank you. P.S. I hear the links work better in Internet Explorer or Safari, and sometimes the credit card applications tend to glitch out in Chrome. Additionally, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to this podcast, leave a 5-star review, and share it with a friend. And if you would like to make even more travel hacking friends, please sign up for the Patreon to access our monthly masterclass hangouts. We dive deep into a particular points program each month, and you'll get to ask all of your travel hacking questions and enjoy being around other people who enjoy points and miles just as much as you and I do. If you would like an invite to the next one, head over to geobreezetravel.com/hangouts to sign up to be on the invite list. Take care and happy travels!